Brilliant. Hi Tanya, how are you doing?
I'm good, Anna. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yes, and this is our second time seeing each other virtually, so maybe in the
It
next
is.
couple of months we'll maybe be able to meet face to face.
That would be wonderful. And at some point in time, I have to meet Frank as well.
Yes, yes, you do. And well, thank you so much for coming on Talking Thursdays with myself today.
Well, Anna, it's an absolute privilege, and thank you very much for having me here.
I know I really do appreciate you coming on. So one of my main questions for you is, how have you been coping throughout lockdown? What have you been doing? I know you've got two young children at home. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an incredibly interesting time, bearing in mind that on March the 19th, I was supposed to hold our big shareholder event, which is actually when we were supposed to meet Frank, who's part of the investment brigade that came into the business, and that obviously had to be cancelled. So that happened, and then 2 days before, I hadn't had any notifications of any listings, so I had some money in the bank to get the business to go forward, but unfortunately I wasn't sure how that was going to play out. I was delighted to find out 2 days before social distancing that, sorry, 2 days into social distancing, that the buyer and the ranging manager would like to see our products. So I rolled them across the hallway and got the products through to them, Tanya's Just Real Sources, and they loved them. And I received about 2 weeks in a phone call from the buyer saying, we want to list you. And they pulled the listing forward May the 27th. So all of this going on in lockdown. If it hadn't been for the fact that my husband was furloughed, because 9 times out of 10 my husband works Monday to Friday away from home, I would have really struggled to be able to do the listing. He also covered all the homeschooling. The one thing that we've learned as parents is we're not teachers, and our huge respect for teachers has gone up massively. I don't know how they manage 30 when we can barely manage 2 between us. But I think when it comes to talking about this period, I have to say, I've almost felt blessed during it, because I've seen the way that other people have been impacted by it, and it's terrifying, and it's really upsetting from that perspective. I've got several chefs in the industry that I'm friends with, and I've connected via LinkedIn, which is where I do most of my social networking. And within moments, and many other industries, their purpose was kind of switched off. And that has been really difficult to kind of get my head around that for them, because how do they live to please other people, as does the hospitality industry, and it was shut down overnight. And my heart, as I say, goes out to them, which is one of the reasons that actually we touched base with Frank and Ruth Hanson and I, who is Ruth, you'll know from Great British Menu, a wonderful human being and a very, very talented chef, who fortunately was playing during Great British Menu, was a real lifeline for us to be able to have kind of, also we set up a Tanya's Just Real Chefs Challenge, where we had a selection of different chefs cooking every week. Andy Aston included, Spencer Westcott, and it was being able to actually have a little bit of fun during that period, and if we could give a little bit of purpose back to people, because from my perspective personally, I've been thrown a huge lifeline. The listing with Waitrose was obviously huge and a major achievement. The fact that my manufacturing partners over in Eindhoven were able to deliver it, albeit I couldn't be at the production. And yeah, I mean, it's been a tough period. It's been toughest on my children, and actually watching my children and how they've been able to deal with it, them not being able to see their friends, not having the hugs. But you know, yeah, it's tough, but we're in a lucky position. They've got each other as well. They've got a garden, and there are too many children out there that don't have those luxuries.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, I'm like you, I'm extremely grateful. I'm 22, but I'm super grateful for my garden. You know, I'm not really sure what I would have done without it through this period. So
yeah, it is. And I mean, the paddling pools came out. We were also blessed with amazing weather, which was, you know, the first 8 weeks were pretty extraordinary in terms of the weather. And one thing that I did notice was, you know, everything went a bit quieter. The sky got bluer, and for me, it was a real time for reflection in terms of sustainability and also the way that we all live our lives. There was a level of respect and human respect that came across from people. I mean, Thomas Franks is a prime example of that, in terms of people changing the way they worked. and, you know, really fighting for it. Sadly, there are businesses that haven't been able to do that, and, you know, individuals that have really struggled. And I'm sure we'll pick this up later on during this conversation, is, you know, an area of vulnerability was initially the elderly. It's now that vulnerability has stretched across a much wider range of people. That includes people that suffer with mental health issues, and those mental health issues are increasing. Those with mental illness, like myself, we felt a more difficult environment to shop in. The stockpiling hit us hard. We had ourselves 72 hours without toilet paper. Fortunately, we had baby wipes, I hasten to add. But then it's also, from my product perspective, is everything about our product was to be able to allow people to create meals easily from scratch, and healthy meals. And so whilst we've got lots of people at home, I thought, right, well, actually, even prior to our Waitrose listing announcement, we also had opened very fast track our direct to consumer in very basic sachet format, so that we could assist people during this time and make the product available for them, so help them.
So you've touched on your product, and you are MD, founder, producer of Tanyas Just Real, and actually I have.
I love it.
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorites.
Well, I think the last time we spoke, I think you did mention maybe this one, but yeah, we went to Waitrose at the weekend, and I said, oh, I'll just grab one of these. And
thank you very much. Yeah. Have you tried it yet?
I haven't yet. No, it is. It's on tonight. So
fantastic. Okay, be cautious. It's called Fiery Fiasco for a reason.
Oh.
Okay, so and it is, as people that like fire have loved it, but the whole, and that background behind that one actually inspired by my mum. But the whole concept, if you want me to tell you a little bit about the products.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay, so the whole concept kind of came about when I left a background corporate life in the energy industry. And it's when pressure became too much for me as a working mum, and the imbalance of juggling work-life balance and sacrificing time with my children. It's a very long story behind that, but I'm not going to fill up that time. We'll be on here for hours. But that whole idea for me was I wanted to be able to create a solution for people like me that removed the stress, mess and waste that's associated with cooking from scratch. So, but to also keep it completely clean label. So not to have any salt in it, no sugar, gluten-free, lactose-free, wheat-free, dairy-free. So one sauce fits all effectively. But a very important part was to keep it raw and unpasteurized, so that you could also use it as an alternative to ketchup. And then you obviously have all the nutritional benefits associated with raw ingredients. So, for example, my little boy uses beetroot cahoot as a ketchup, and he also uses cucumber blunder with his fish fingers. My little girl loves smoky koki as a pesto. And interestingly, smoky koki, inspired by my husband, I shouldn't say this, but it's actually my least favorite sauce, right? But it is one of the very, very, very popular ones because it's great with barbecues and what have you. But the key thing for me, as I say, was to be able to offer people something that enabled to free up time, so that they could spend more time with their children and also doing things that they enjoy and they love. And importantly, it's not just another sauce. It is a chef rated sauce. I've had lots of chefs use it and rate it. And it's about being able to turn something very ordinary into something extraordinary, but also without compromising on health benefits.
Do you know what I love about it is at the front where it says absolutely no nasties. That's probably like my favorite. Well, yeah, I think that's great. I think it's fantastic because, well, selfishly, not even I don't have any children, but I work full time. My boyfriend works full time, and we do both get back really late if I'm not working at home. So actually cooking a meal becomes more of a chore. And then, we don't really spend as much time together because we're in the kitchen, and then, we go to bed or we do whatever. And so I'm actually really looking forward to it tonight because I'll just
delighted to. What are you having it with?
Chicken.
Perfect combination. And the heat does come down slightly, but that's also wonderful with smashed avocado. So just literally pour it over avocado, smash it. That's my morning breakfast every morning.
Amazing.
But you mentioned the point on the absolutely no nasties, and that's an important piece for me because I've mentioned the mental health issues and stress and anxiety I had as a working parent, but I also had issues from the age of 8 years old related to an eating disorder. And that was very much triggered by the environment that I lived in, which is again why I'm very conscious of this environment, the lockdown environment, the impact that's had on my children, but also all the other children out there. The important piece for me was my illness was then, I had bulimia. My illness was then fueled by ultra processed food. So the high salt content, the high sugar, high fat levels, they effectively became an addiction for me and my nature, and I can't eat them, which is one of the reasons the products are completely clean label. I had to create something that I was happy, not only happy for my children to eat, but happy and comfortable for me to eat.
Well, thank you for opening up about that. You know, I think it's really important that we kind of talk about it, and we will move on to it. But so I picked up from your LinkedIn, I did a little bit stalking, and it says that you say on your profile that you are on a mission to disrupt and affect change in the food industry. So I suppose we've already kind of touched on it as well, but why exactly did you create this product? Was it really because, you know, to help your home environment, you know, so you could spend more time with your children? And
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting when people say to me, what inspired you to do it? What made you come up and create the concepts? And it does come back to those very two key features, which is my struggles that related with for me as a child, and then going on, and I live with my eating disorder, but then more importantly is the mental health issues for working parents. And I know I'm not alone in the whole struggle of the juggle and the routine. So when we talk about disrupting and affecting change in the food industry, the number of times I've sat down with buyers and all sorts of people, industry experts, saying, no one's ever done this before. You know, my first experience was a show in the Allergy Show back in 2016, this month actually, where I had the likes of Costco, Asda, these guys come over and said, no one else is doing this. And actually, the reality is because it's a cold pressed product, and that's really important, is HPP, high pressure processing, isn't well known in this country. It's very widely recognized in the US, but that is our sole USP, which is also we've got to communicate that to consumers in terms of what benefits that comes with. And it is simply that you're not cooking the taste and textures out of those raw ingredients. So you're in a position where you've got a product that can exist without salt, sugar contents. And as again, I was having a conversation with our Waitrose buyer today, and he was just saying, your product is just so versatile. And that was a really key feature for me, is this versatility. So anyone can use it. And we're positioned in two places in store in Waitrose. We're positioned with the dressings, and we're also fresh dressings, that is, by the salads, and also by the poultry, by the gravies, showing that you've got the pairing. So and kind of backtracking here, I launched my product originally under the Saucy Affair. People may remember me from the black dress and the mask. It was, you know, a lot of people kind of eye-catching, but it didn't quite capture, well, in fact, it didn't capture the seriousness, of the messaging and the change that we're trying to affect, but also the goodness inside the bottle, which is all about this just real ingredients and no nasties. And that is one of our biggest USPs. It's also been our greatest challenge because we're disrupting a market. We're introducing, as retailers have recognized, and the industry has recognized, a new concept of convenience, healthy convenience, that sits between cooking from scratch and a ready meal. And we're just trying to fill that gap there. So if you were going to, I mean, in our discussions with different retailers, it's almost like, I did a little bit of work with John Stapleton, who was the co-founder of Covent Garden Soup. They introduced a brand new concept into the industry, which was fresh soup. So effectively, we are introducing fresh sauce that you can do a multitude of things for. And as I like to play on words, it's a fresh take on sauce and this kind of thing, but it effectively tastes amazing. And I can say that based on what other people have said. But it's also just a new concept of convenience, as I mentioned.
Yeah. So as some people already know, you were extremely generous during the kind of the height of the pandemic, and you donated to Thomas Frank's over 2,000 different flavors of your pouches of your cook-in sauce, and these were distributed to vulnerable families within London through the Mayor's Fund for London Kitchen Social. And just really, why did you want to help in that way?
Do you know what I dropped, and this again is a demonstration of how phenomenally charitable, but then also forward thinking, and on Thomas Franks is and Frank Bothwell is. I realized I had a listing with Waitrose, and I knew that Frank and yourselves were doing this work, and I thought it was amazing. But how can I get involved? How can I contribute to that? Because for me, the awareness of the people that are lacking food and the families that are lacking food during this time when they most need it, and healthy food, because the obvious route to go down, unfortunately, for these families is the ultra processed route, because it's cheaper, it's fast, it's simple, and that doesn't bode well for the future generations that we're going and what people are going through now. Now more than ever, they need to be given and eating fresh, real food to support their physical and their mental health side of it. So it came down to the fact, actually, when Frank said, yes, I'll take them, it was like, amazing. This is brilliant. And it's more than anything, it was, as I said, it's during a time where we're seeing so many people during that period, particularly, so many people wanting to help, but not having the ability to help or volunteer, whatever. The fact that we were able to do that actually is, it's self-rewarding as well, because it feels really good to do something good. We were just, I think I will mention, the only minor concern that I had is because of these families that are being impacted, that, on the vulnerable community side of it and the less privileged communities, my concern is are they actually going to appreciate the source itself, because they are so fresh and not necessarily what people are used to of that demographic. And I just pray that they were enjoyed, and the fiery was, I just thought to myself, I do hope these are put to good use, because they're loved more than anything else. And I would, if we had lots more, we would love to make lots more, but unfortunately at this point in time, whilst the business is growing, we will look to do so. That's the kind of thing that we as a company, and I personally, would love to get involved in later on down the line, in terms of education of food and the value of real food. And that's one thing that I have noticed during the period that Thomas Franks has been delivering these meals, is the nutritional benefits of them. It is real food that you're putting out there, and that's even from the early days why I've loved working with Frank and your team.
Yeah. So we've already kind of touched on this, but a topic that I do really want to discuss with you after speaking to you before and knowing about your product as well, is mental health, but especially within younger people, because again, I've said this, I feel like it just isn't really spoken about. Definitely it has been spoken about much more recently, especially with the pandemic, but I do feel like we kind of, not forget, that's the wrong word, but we don't talk about it as much with younger people. So, and again, from your LinkedIn, you say that you're looking to spearhead mental health awareness for working parents and children in a chaotic world. Could you just expand on this for me, especially in regards to younger children?
I can see one of my younger children. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
That was interesting timing. Right.
Yeah, it was.
Are we going to Bobby's?
In a little while, okay. Love you.
Love you.
Love you. See you later. So those are the benefits of lockdown, okay, is that you get your children coming in and giving you random hugs. But I mean, so it's a really important point. One of the reasons I launched this or came up with the concept was because I've done quite a lot of statistics-based studies in terms of, parents' mental health, children's mental health. And the reality is that pre-COVID, 68% of women that suffer mental health issues are parents, and 57% of men with mental health issues are parents. And the reason for this is society's changed. Both parents have to work now. My mum didn't work. Sorry. So my mum didn't work. There was that level playing field as, the homemaker, what have you. Women nowadays who are being mum and also working, you're trying to be as there for your children as your mum was for you, and that kind of environment. and that's quite distracting in the background. But the other bit, so that's no doubt during this period, because I, like many other parents out there now, almost not dreading summer, but concerned about summer. Our children have been off school for half a year, effectively. They're going in, mine have come off school a week early, so they're at home now. There's been no change. There's no excitement with going into the summer holidays. And it's about nurturing and having those conversations, as you say. So the basis of the creation of our product was not just around, and this is a brand purpose, was not just around real food and getting, making that available, but encouraging meal times and family meal times. So open lines of communication. Where my eating disorder came into play was my parents, that they had a breakdown, a marriage breakdown. We stopped having dinner around the table. I stopped talking, and I didn't have an escape route to talk about it, and that all became consumed in me as a 8-9-year-old, that then turned into bulimia. It actually started off with tummy aches. I meant to make that point. So this is understanding and talking to our children to say, if they've got a tummy ache but they don't have any other symptoms, why have they got a tummy ache? And that is a really clear example of the connection between gut health and mental health. And I don't think there's enough awareness or education about it, as you say. And the reality is our children now, and this is another statistic that's important to mention, is 50% of mental health issues and mental illness is established by the age of 14, 75% is established by the age of 25. So these guys, our children now, the millions of children, have just been through the most extraordinary experience, and for some of them it will have been horrendous, and their mental health will be taking an absolute kicking at the moment, and that needs to be, as you say, talked about. And the people that can talk about it, is there are many charities who are doing lots of amazing work. You've got Young Minds, you've got Anna Freud, you've got Beat, which is specifically focused on the eating disorder side of it. And but they've also been caught out because their demand has gone up massively and they don't have the funding to do it. So something has to happen. And if parents can communicate and have those open conversations with their children, rest assured it helps you as much as it does your children. And that's one thing that I've noticed about my children, is they may not tell you something immediately, but carry on asking gently, and eventually they start to unravel where they've got to. But they're going through something that's completely unimaginable, and we haven't been through it either.
No, and I do want to go back to the point with I have the most amazing parents in my mind. They're the best parents in the world, and every night, no matter if, when I was growing up, no matter if we had a pizza after I went swimming, it was always at the kitchen table, so that we spoke. And I didn't really enjoy school when I was younger, but I know that by sitting there and kind of what you were saying, I'm sure my mum outright just asked me what's wrong, but once we got talking about other things, maybe it would be brought up. And I do say, when I live with my boyfriend, and we always eat at the table because we talk about our days now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's so easy, and I know, just to stick the TV on and just sit.
Yeah, it is. And phones. I mean, I have to say devices, because that's and I call them devices. So device time in this house. And it's the one thing that has been very tough for me during this period is, whilst I am at home, because I've been doing the launch and all the rest of my husband's taking it, I felt like I've barely seen them. So that 45 minutes where we're sat down having a conversation about our day ticks those boxes and makes a huge impact for them. But it's also, except for taking the occasional photo of my kids eating, which I then will post, phones are not allowed at the table. And if they can't, our meal times can't be interrupted. Another piece for the how we're also as a brand trying to communicate is put meals or food in the center of the table, empowering your children to actually help themselves. They've got they have got an ability to self-control their portions, similar to a baby when they pull away from milk. They've had enough. That's something that I think we generally, you look at the obesity levels and what have you, generally many people don't choose obesity. I hasten to add, for some it is a physical disability, it's also a mental disability as well. But it does allow children to say, right, I'm going to try it myself, and empowers them to actually take care of their own diets. But it's also talking to children about what the impact that food has on you. So when I say to my daughter, so you've eaten loads of sugar, you're grumpy, these kind of things, and they understand it. And then we've got crisps in this house, yes, we've got sweets and all the rest of it, but they've now learned to say, right, I'm only having one of those a day and one of those. So it is that they're much smarter and more resilient than we give them credit for.
So again, I think we have kind of touched on this, but just to get kind of bit broader answer. So what do you think food can do to improve young people's mental health, apart from sitting at a table and trying to talk to your family? But like you've just touched on, if you have too much sugar, you're too grumpy. So how can we?
Yeah, so that comes down to, and it's a big line that I frequently use, it's we are not just what we eat, it's why we eat, who we eat with. So, and it's about, when I explain to my children that what is it, and I should remember this, but I think it's your skin repairs itself within 14 days or something like that. You get new skin, but your whole body goes through a change over a 7-year period. You get a completely new body effectively. Your liver rebuilds itself or replenishes itself every 150 to 350 days. So everything that we eat, it's the one thing, as again another quote, dare I say, food is the ingredient that binds us all together. We all have to eat. And what's so important for our children is to understand, and also for adults and people who are doing the shopping, when they pick up a product and it says low sugar, don't accept that as, okay, that's good to eat, because what else has been replaced with that? And that is the kind of, real interrogation that people need to be armed with. And this, again, is a bit of an education piece, that where it comes from is really important. Government needs to communicate and educate parents and guardians about how the impact of food in terms of mood, your good food, good mood sort of thing. And also understand, why can I not just have one? I mean, Pringles, that did it perfect. I shouldn't know, but why can you not just have one? And you've got to understand why. And just because it says low sugar doesn't mean you can have 5 times as much of it.
No.
So yeah.
Well, kind of a fun question that I do like to ask is, again, you work in food, I work in food. So if you could have dinner with any 3 people in the world, any celebrity, any family member, anyone, who would it be and why, and what meal would you have?
Okay, this isn't an easy one, I have to say. The first one, and this is quite a slightly profound one, and she's not involved in food, but I learned a lot through reading about her, and it's actually Princess Diana. And that's also because you have the likes of what Kate and Prince William are doing, and it's their heads together concept. But Princess Diana suffered from bulimia for a decade, and I've always wondered, and she was someone aspirational to me as a child, that I didn't know that side of her until I started to read a bit more about it. And I would just like to understand from her perspective how she dealt with her recovery process, and the kind of food that she ate, and what was that like, and and to also say thank you for being open about it, because a lot of people with eating, it is a silent illness, it consumes you. It took me 25 years to be able to talk about it openly. And again, kind of bringing it back to today's environment currently, eating disorders and mental illness, this environment is a breeding ground for them. And I think what are the kind of conversations is what triggered hers, and this kind of openness. And I'd love for more people to just be more open. I know it's the hardest thing in the world. As I say, it took me 25 years, but it's that encouraging just people talking about it. And what would she do to try and help people talk about it now? And in terms of eating, it would have to be oysters and fiery fiasco. And that's simply because it's a super, super healthy meal, and it's an amazing combination. And hopefully, fingers crossed, you would like oysters. So then then this was it's a really difficult question, because there are a number of chefs that I would love to have dinner with, and one of them is Ruth Hanson. But I have to say, Ruth and I have had a barbecue recently, so I kind of ticked that box and we've been able to catch up. But there's a gentleman who, through this period, I've never met him before, and there have been many chefs that I've never met before that have tried the product and been playing with the product. But there's one in particular, Andy Aston, who works for Baxter Story, who on every time he did the TJR challenge, bless him, he did a presentation on a video on Instagram and talked about the product, talked about the usage, and the charisma that came across from him and the number of meals that he served up to NHS and what have you is completely admirable. And he's the kind of person that actually, when it comes to what meal would I have, I'd actually say to him, look, you know all my dietary requirements, use some sauce and can you make me something? So but in terms of why, I'm just dying to meet him. I still haven't met him. We've still been staying, and I just still haven't met him. So, final one is your very own Frank Bodwell. So, and that comes down to the fact you've got a man who I kind of perceive as a bit of a guardian angel for everybody at the moment. His resilience and his strength during this time, and his ability to turn things around within such a short period and do some real good for people that need it is, I mean, it does actually break, it makes me well up a bit, because it's just a remarkable, and you all are, I mean, having spoken to you all, you're just proper fighters. And quite frankly, if I had a choice, why don't we just have a massive dinner party and we can get all your chefs to cook, like Kevin Steele, Gavin Young, and I had the great pleasure to meet these guys before this. And yeah, so I think that would be the final point. And I've got tears in my eyes now, so I'm an emotional person.
Oh, so am I. You know, put a Disney film on or anything heartbreaking, I'm bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. My children do say to me, Mama, are you crying again?
Well, Tanya, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been amazing. It really has. And thank you for being so honest and open. Yeah.
Well, Anna, thank you very much. And thank you very much to all of you for what you guys are doing, and giving people a voice is really important. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Hopefully I'll meet you in person soon.
Absolutely. And let me know how it goes with fiery fiasco and chicken.
I will, definitely. Okay. Thank you so much, Tanya.
Only if it's good. See you later. Thank you.
Bye.